Hello, this is Charlie Smithers doing the Society, Communities and Coaching presentation centered around sociology, philosophy, socialization, and working with those in the community groups. To start off, we're going to look at sociology as a concept, and that concept is the idea of working with social groups, a person's purpose, as Fulcher and Scott say, and how social groups and different communities interact with each other in order to reach certain goals, create certain events, have certain activities. We can understand that through sociology, a coach is able to understand a wider perspective and work with different groups and understand different contexts of groups so that when they are doing their coaching and preparing and implementing sessions, they can work with different types of communities in different ways in order to see the results that said community group are actually looking for. Because obviously, when the time of coaching, there are going to be loads of different groups that people are going to work with, and it's important to understand that people are different and communities are different, and that you've got to work differently with different people in order to reach different goals. When a coach is able to understand this through sociology, they can then build relationship and reinforce empathy within these groups to show that we're one as a whole and we're able to work together rather than clashing separately. Okay, the understanding of sociology within a community can also allow for bridging, as Johnston says, which is really important when bringing groups of people together rather than having them clash. Data in sociology can be really important, really helpful because it helps to provide statistics and visual representations of how sociology and how social groups interact and perform. When talking about sports specifically, we can see that here, this graph represents men and women and their activity levels shown by Sport England. This doesn't just apply to men and women, as we can look at race, we can look at income relating to sport activity, we can look at the actual sport themselves that are played, and can look at different genders and disabilities and all these different factors and look at how much sport they achieve, how much activity they do, how much interaction they do with these different things. And this data helps a coach to identify gaps of where they can improve, gaps in where that they can attack, and look to promote activity and promote sport, and then how that they allows them to then build and create that plan of how they're going to fill these gaps and promote activity to those that might miss it. As you can see here, there's points where women are competing less and joining in less, and the use of this graph would be that a coach would then see this and go, how can I improve this, how can I make this better? Moving on from this bit, we can look at personal socialization and look at how this actually impacts myself as a coach. So here we've got a figuration. We can see myself in the center and those around me. So people that I know at university, my family, my business networks involved in those that I work with, my sporting networks, people that I've interacted with through sport and through just the being a human and a person and all, and look at the communities that I interact with. So what's my figuration like? How many social groups am I working with? Because this will change throughout my entire life and how mine's growing. So for each person, their figuration is going to be completely different and huge different sizes of how much interaction they get with different people. This is really important because it sees who you've been influenced by in your life, and that allows you to work out why I am the way I am. So looking at personal socialization, we can see that coaches are going to have their own socialization. They're going to feel the way they do and act the way they do based on what they've been around, so what their values are. But obviously my values are also influenced by who I'm around and who I've been brought up by, my assumptions, how I see things. Why are my assumptions the way they are? Because of those who I've been brought up by, my own values, by what I prioritize and what I see as my personal principle. Cushion and Partington talk about how philosophy informs practice, and when creating my own philosophy, I need to look at others and see why that I've built this philosophy and why I see fun or why I see safety as such an important factor. My philosophy is going to change over time, and that's really important for me to recognize as a coach in order to keep growing and keep building and keep understanding that different contexts and different communities and different groups need that different type of work with them in order to benefit and get what they truly need out of sport and out of activity. Looking at my own influences, I can see that myself, Horriman and Bauer would say, I reflect my environment, who I'm brought up by. I can see that both my parents have been teachers, so that I'm brought up in a very education-driven environment. I prioritize education. I see it as very important, whereas others don't. If their parents were less interested, I value sport. My parents being huge sport fans, I've been involved in sport within young, so I value it. Someone without that is much less likely to. I've been involved in elite sport. I've played semi-professional football, and I've ran at a very high national level. So I see competitive sport as a wonderful thing. Someone who doesn't like competitiveness and hasn't seen sport at that level is not going to. And I need to remember that in my coaching in order to say they might not see it the same way as me. And that's really important to understand that context. My habitus focuses on how I engage with the world and how others will, and understanding how they do and why they do, and not just judging straight away. I've been liable to I, we, they theories, and it's really important for me to understand that and go, it's important to really understand the context and go that they might be this way for that reason. And it's not fair to just judge and act based on that, but put myself in those shoes and so a level of empathy. Here, quickly, we can see my influences. So there's family, there's different sporting environments, both at participation level and a competitive level, the people I look up to, the people I work with, and how all these people influence me to be the person I am and the coach I am today. The last bit of this philosophy would talk about how my philosophy isn't completely picked by me. I'll look at others and see what they aspire to be and how they act, and then base myself after that. And it's going to be influenced by my life experiences, my ideologies, as Davis says. And my philosophy has to stay fluid so that I can work with these different community groups and these different people over a period of time. And that self-reflection of understanding where I sometimes falter and sometimes where I need to be better. For example, the I, we, and they, I sometimes see groups and go, that group's this and that group's that. And I need to take that context and understand that it's not just that, and it's different to the way that I sometimes perceive things. So there we go, just a little diagram of who are my participants, and what is my context for when I'm building said philosophy. The community group we're going to look at within this presentation are the Weetabix Wildcats. So they're an FA-ran group, as you can see from Sport England, that encourage girls to participate in football at a very voluntary participation level, non-competitive, looking to just understand and start to build some enjoyment for the sport. A sociological concept that we've talked upon briefly and that is applicable to this group would be the I, we, they. So the I is myself, how I see myself, the we is the group I'm a part of, who I'm working with, who I'm around, and the they is the group away, somebody else, someone, my opponents, people I see that I don't like, that sort of idea. So for example, I is me, Charlie, we as Hallam, my university, and uni of as the they, the different group, the group I see as the outsiders. This theory is really important because we're looking to break that down and get rid of the I, we, they, so that we're just a we. We can be an I as an individual with our own loves and likes and interests, and a we as a group, but as a collective, rather than seeing they as a group that's someone else and someone we don't like and someone that we're going to stigmatize and see as separate and not someone we want to work with. We want to build that we and that I as a togetherness, rather than seeing that they as that entity that's not with us as someone that we don't like. We want to break that down. And in the Wildcats, it's important about understanding that groups are different, but how we can work with that group and bridge with that group rather than seeing them as separate. Moving on from this, we're going to look at the bridging and bonding theory. So bridging and coming together, as Portney says. So mixing mini groups, as you can see in the diagram. We're bringing a change. We've got smaller groups, but we're bonding with other people and bringing different groups in so that we've got a much bigger collective, a much more open and welcoming collective. So for example, the Wildcats working with a Sunday group or a Saturday group to bridge and see different ways of football, different ways of activity is really important, rather than shutting ourselves off and going, we're not competitive, we just want to have a bit of fun. So that means that other group that are competitive, they're the bad group, they're the wrong group, they're not what we stand for. But how can we actually break down that barrier and work together rather than seeing them as a separate entity? As Claridge says, this is really important for bringing about social change and really pushing the idea of socialization as a desirable whole group, bringing together rather than separate. We want to bring people together rather than keep them separate. And that's really important when working with the Wildcats. Bonding as the opposite is groups that are inward, as Portney says, and groups that are close, very close knit, but aren't willing to expand and aren't willing to be open to others. And that's a negative because it means that we become separate and we then develop those we and those they identities, and we don't work and we don't look towards building with the groups that are around us. We just see them as separate and we clash, and that's when groups and socialization begins to become inward and negative, because we aren't willing to expand and we aren't willing to be open-minded, which is what we want. Stigma is also a really important part of it. As you can see, there's a cycle. You can look that through on the right side of your screen from the compliance group. That shows that people are willing to label, and it becomes that us and that them, that we and that they, looking about what we talked about earlier. And Yang and Kleiman talk about the perception of people and how we see groups that aren't us. And that's really important, because when we're looking to encourage sport at that entry level, we want people to be open and we want people to be accepting and understand that not everyone's the same, and that is okay. That's not a bad thing. And people if you've got that preconception, of that misconception as well, of expecting somebody or expecting a group to be like something and they're not, that's really unfair, and it doesn't help us to grow and bridge and work with each other. And we end up becoming separates again, and we end up clashing because we see people as something they really aren't. As you can see on the side of the screen, sorry, it's often inaccurate. It's often not really how it is, but because of so many people are doing it and they're doing it unconsciously, as Forbes says, uh, you can't help it. But it's important to identify this, like we spoke on that self-reflection, understanding that sometimes we do things and we might not realize it, and it's not always good. And we need, if we're able to identify it, we can build and we can grow and we can see, have been like this, but I can improve and I can be more and I can be better than this. And that's really important when we're looking to build these groups and bring them together. So for the girls in the Wildcats, can we see another group and can we look at the good elements and let them prove who they are, rather than just having that idea that they might be competitive and they might be against us and they might be ruthless and they might be rude, and going, if not, maybe they're just determined and they're willing and they're open and they're going to help us and we're going to grow together. That's what we're looking for when we're looking to break down stigma. Especially as a coach, it's really important that you identify it and look to kick it out so that we can have a whole, and that you as the coach then don't become stigmatized, and the girls or whoever you're working with don't go, the coach is this way and the coach is just like that and the coach is only going to work like that. So it's all about working together. When working with the group themselves, as a coach, what I would look to implement in order to improve is looking at a shared philosophy. So what do I want? What is the context of what I'm coaching? What do the girls that I'm working with want as my participants? And what do their parents want as the people that are bringing them? And then what is the purpose of the group? FA or Sport England or whoever's involved, what do they want out of the group? And when we've got that, we can look at all these elements and create a shared philosophy where every single participant and every single social group within the big entity is able to get what they want out of it and really improve based upon this. Shared philosophy focuses on incorporating more than just my view. So if this is the coach, I'm in charge to a level, but I want to incorporate other views and not just my own. And this allows me to build these relationships and build these goals and work with people rather than separating ourselves as an I as the coach and a we as the participants, and the participants not going they as the coach and they as the FA, they are those involved, and we're just that small little we group. Another way we'd look to grow and improve the Wildcats would be to offer more opportunity. Okay, at the minute we can look at all the Wildcat locations in Leicestershire. There's a lot, but there's areas that, again, that we're not working with, and the areas that we're not looking to improve. And it's really important to work with these groups in order to give everyone the opportunities they deserve. We can look at example on here, such as Asian support groups become very popular, but giving opportunities to those through the statistics we looked at the start that might not have access or might not have the opportunity to involve themselves in sport as much, and then offering these Wildcats opportunities to those as well. And then understanding that the coaches involved can apply the context to their coaching and go, this group might not have any idea about football, this group might not have any interest or any rules, and it's my job to then facilitate their learning and go that this is completely different to a group that know what they're doing and have experience, and really contextualizing who they're working with. But giving that greater opportunity means that the amount of participants coming through is then likely to improve. The more opportunities you put on, the more people you're going to get. It's as simple as that. And then When you've then got all these different groups, you can then create greater ideas and greater groups where we then have the opportunity to bridge, and we can become that we, but that positive we, and not that negative they. And we can work together and have lots of different people and types of people and social groups. And that's when socialization as an idea becomes so positive, because we're bringing lots of people together and everyone's accepting and we're diverse, and we can understand different contexts, and we can have the opportunities where everyone's able to be involved. And for the Wildcats, that would be really important. Some of our concluding points then, looking at sociology itself, would be it's really important to look at it because we're studying and understanding the groups we work with as well as ourselves. Understanding ourselves is really important because it means we can allow self-reflection on why we are in the position we're in, how we've got to that position, and what we can do to benefit ourselves to become a greater version of us. So a greater coach, a greater manager, a greater friend, a greater player, whatever we're building to become more than we are now. Those community sport programs are so important, and understanding the context of each is really important so that we can look at where we're going and how we're going to get there, who we're working with, and how we're going to work with said group to improve. Shared philosophy, as we spoke on, is really important because we're looking at who we're working with and how we're going to marry our likes and our goals with them with theirs, and that allows for us all to get something out of it. And as it says at the bottom, results in everyone winning and everyone getting something out of the group that they want, and everyone then wins and everyone gets one out of it. Just to finish, here's my reference list, so you can go through that at all if you're interested and see all the people that I've quoted or have looked at. Thank you very much. This has been Sport, Community and Coaching, and this has been my presentation.